AAU basketball, which is a completely different argument than the Black American thing. I think whenever you bring race into something like this, it hijacks the conversation and takes away from the initial point.
I don't think it's appropriate to call KD reckless with this comment. And I think that it's important to point out that while you talk about victimhood when it comes to racism, right? There is a history that shows black people have been victimized by racism.
Yes.
Not in every single case, not always or anything like that, but the fact of the matter is that's a reality.
Well, it turns into a battle between Kevin Durant and Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic when obviously because there's Wemby.
He's saying that when y'all come with this cynicism and this skepticism, it is aimed at the Black American players.
AAU basketball, which is a completely different argument than the Black American thing. I think whenever you bring race into something like this, it hijacks the conversation and takes away from the initial point. Right. I don't think it's appropriate to call KD reckless with this comment. And I think that it's important to point out that while you talk about victimhood when it comes to racism, there is a history that shows black people have been victimized by racism. Not in every single case, not always or anything like that, but the fact of the matter is that's a reality. Well, it turns into a battle between Kevin Durant and Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic when obviously because there's Wemby. His saying that when you'll come with this cynicism and this skepticism, it is aimed at the Black American players. The lights go up. The crowd leans in. And the internet stops scrolling because tonight, one of the biggest personalities in sports media put a megaphone right up to one of the game's most guarded stars. When Stephen A. Smith confronted Kevin Durant live about his incendiary comments on USA basketball critics, it felt less like TV and more like theater. This wasn't a soft interview. It was a cross-examination, one that pulled in race, pride, Olympic ambition, and the future of American basketball. If you thought the NBA off-season was quiet, think again. This moment exploded into hours of clips, pundit panels, and debate threads. LeBron James' name even got dragged into the mix as everyone asked, what does this mean for leadership, legacy, and Team USA? NBA drama served hot. Let's start with what KD actually said, because the details matter. In an interview that went viral, Durant pushed back on a narrative he felt was written about American hoops, namely that European style is better or that the AAU model is destroying the game. Durant said he hears a coded critique, calling out talk that sounded like a shot at Black American development systems and players. He wasn't just defending a style of play. He framed it as a cultural and racial slight. People don't throw around that charge lightly. And once KD said it, commentators had to respond. Get that predominantly players in the NBA are African American, but there are also a lot of players in the NBA and around the country that are Caucasian and involved in the same developmental structure, right, of AAU basketball compared to the likes of overseas where it's more INST. That's when Stephen A. did what he does best. He leaned in, big and loud, on live TV. He didn't just read the quote, he interrogated the meaning. Was Durant right to call certain critiques racially coded? Was he deflecting from performance questions by pivoting to identity? And this is where it gets dangerous when Stephen A. made it clear he understood the sting, but he also wanted KD to be specific. If you're going to say it's a shot at Black America, name names. Explain the mechanism, he said on First Take. And the clip immediately lit up social. Jay Williams backed him on parts, pushed back on others, and the segment became the first post in a chain reaction of responses across platforms. Durant's line was basically, he can read between the lines. When pundits praise European basketball or insist the American AAU system is broken, those arguments carry undertones that diminish Black American influence in the sport. Stephen A.'s reply boiled down to, that's a serious claim. If you make it, you need receipts. He also made the point that even if there's truth to KD's view, the way you deliver the message matters when you're a public figure with enormous reach. It's a classic claim versus delivery problem. People who are quick to declare a systemic slight have to be ready to explain institutional players in tangible examples. The conversation becomes a heated shouting match. Kevin Durant with all of those superlatives and whatever. Jay, He was talking about the narrative. He wasn't refuting what Kobe had highlighted in terms of European basketball and what they focused on compared to what was transpiring in America and what have you. In my estimation, he was pointing to the narrative. But here's the thing, this isn't the first time KD and high-profile commentators have traded barbs. Durability and leadership questions have followed him for years, and he's clapped back publicly before, even poking fun at Stephen A. on social media at times. So this felt like the latest chapter in an ongoing tension between player autonomy and media scrutiny. At the same time, KD made headlines for another reason this week. He told reporters he's open to chasing a fifth Olympic appearance at the 2028 Los Angeles Games, which complicates the framing of his comments. If he's angling to be Team USA's elder statesman, calling out pundits about coded critiques is both a defensive strategy and a preemptive reclamation of the narrative around American basketball pride. That combination of patriotism and pointed cultural critique is what turned this from a simple TV moment to front-page fodder. Okay, facts and figures for the receipts, people. Kevin Durant's Olympic resume is already historic. Multiple gold medals and heavy international scoring. So when he says he wants to return in 2028, it's not a vanity move, it's a positioning move. The Reuters and Houston Chronicle coverage confirms he told USA basketball leadership he's interested, and he emphasized he wants to earn a spot on merit rather than be handpicked for reputation. That's relevant because the media's critique, whether about style, leadership, or age, now sits beside KD's assertion that he'll still produce at elite levels. For pundits like Stephen A., that raises an obvious question. If you say you'll play and you defend the AAU model, prove it on the court and by being explicit about which narratives you're calling out. The interplay between words and performance is what drives this whole saga. Of course they're going to go LeBron and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, the most skilled player in the history of the game. Yeah, it's going to be a thing. Hold on. One of the most skilled players in the history of the game who has never cheated the game. He's never cheated the game. The brother shows up, all he wants to do is hoop. No load management with him. He don't take his money for granted. He's not playing like somebody that's not a champion. He's pointing out. The league right now is buzzing. Trade chatter continues to orbit stars like Luka and Donovan Mitchell. The Houston Rockets roster shakeups keep making headlines. And the Lakers' worldview around LeBron's legacy keeps fueling hot takes. Why does that matter? Because when a star like KD speaks on culture and Team USA, it reverberates differently depending on franchise context. A veteran trying to extend his legacy with Olympic runs reads differently if his NBA season is trending up or if rumors say his team could pivot around him. Meanwhile, broadcasters are hungry for threads that connect the dots between international play, NBA-style evolution, and who counts as leadership. That's why Stephen A. could make this moment land. He wove KD's comments into the broader narrative about aging stars, globalization of the NBA, and what leadership looks like in 2026. What about the social reaction? It was predictably polarized. Clips of Stephen A. confronting KD racked up views by the 100,000s. #KD and #Team USA trended for hours. Some fans cheered KD for speaking truth to a biased narrative. Others accused him of playing the race card to dodge substantive questions about his leadership or on-court choices. Pundits split. A few lined up behind KD's cultural critique, while others, including some former players turned analysts, said this was a clumsy moment for a player who needs to be clearer. People love drama, but they respect receipts. And that's the double-edged sword here. The net result, the conversation moved from did he mean it to what does he want next? And that's where the next episodes of this story will be written. You are going to feel the way that KD articulated his thoughts. I understand it. And that's why I sided with him 1,000%, because I'm saying what he's saying is a legitimate feeling that a lot of these guys have, and we owe it to them to acknowledge they really, really do feel that way. They ain't bluffing about it. I acknowledge his feeling. I hear it. But his feeling is wrong. Let's talk about legacy, because that's the real engine. For Durant, this has always been part of the brand, lethal scorer, deep thinker, sometimes misunderstood. He's navigated controversies before and often used them to cement his narrative as a competitor who speaks up. If he's serious about 2028 and about defending American basketball systems, this moment could be a turning point. Either a rallying cry that elevates his leadership status or a headline that sticks and distracts. Stephen A., for his part, plays a role in legacy construction, not just critiquing games, but adjudicating character. When he confronts a player like KD Live, it forces the public to choose a side, support the cultural defense, or demand clearer evidence. That's how reputations get reshaped in real time. Now, the stakes for Team USA and for the NBA. If KD plays in Los Angeles and continues to speak on cultural issues, it will shape selection conversations. Do you want veterans who can both produce and handle media firestorms? Or do you prefer quieter, less controversial leaders? And the NBA's international expansion, more games overseas, more players from Europe and Africa, keeps making the American versus European framing inevitable. If stars keep publicly dividing the conversation, the NBA's global branding efforts collide with domestic pride narratives. That's not just locker room drama. It's strategic PR for franchises and for the league itself. The people who sign checks care about how these fights play out in front of sponsors and global audiences. Was Stephen A. right to push KD for specifics, demanding names, mechanisms, and a cleaner argument? Or was Durant right to call out what he sees as coded criticism? Is this a needed cultural pushback or a diversion from performance questions? And the spicy take: does this help or hurt KD's chances in 2028? And who does this make you think of in the ongoing LeBron versus KD versus Curry leadership triangle? Don't hand me weak takes. Be specific. This is the kind of TV moment that defines seasons. It's not just about who yelled louder. It's about whether stars can talk about race, culture, and development without being asked to produce receipts on the spot, and whether media figures get to demand those receipts live on air. Kevin Durant and Stephen A. just handed the NBA a story that will run for weeks. Which side are you on? If KD is right, who else in the league should stand up and say it? If Stephen A. is right, what should KD do next to prove it, on the court, off the mic? Drop your takes below and don't be shy. Pick a team and fight for it.